This is Nan McKay, and I would like to introduce you today to Lisa Bentson. It was really a bright day when I met Lisa Bentson, a business coach extraordinaire. She's been described as a jewel of inspiration, wisdom, and compassion, and I would second that. She's entering a new phase of her life after selling a business called Leads Club. Let's explore where she is now and what she's seeing as women are reaching crossroads in their lives. So welcome, Lisa.
Thanks, Nan. Thank you for having me.
Lisa, your mother started the company Leads Club, which you ran and took to a higher level. When you sell a company, what are the feelings that you go through?
You know, that's such an interesting question, because when I would talk about the concept of selling the business, which I did for years before it actually happened, many close friends and business associates would say, "Oh my gosh, how could you do that to your mother's business?" So there was all this outside assumption that, you know, this was something that would be impossible for me to ever do because she entrusted it to me, the mother. And while I love my mother dearly and feel so honored and privileged to have been mentored by her and work with her and then eventually take her company over when she passed away, I didn't have those weird feelings everybody else was projecting on me. So, you know, I quit kind of talking about it with people. That was just my experience.
Well, that's interesting. Now, that was a member organization. So what challenges do member organizations face? And maybe you can provide a little advice on that subject.
Well, thanks. Yeah. Well, you know, Leads Club started in 1978, so we kind of came on the field pre-computers or social media, definitely pre-COVID. So I think what I've seen with membership organizations over time is the core value of people needing people and wanting to connect has always been there, decade after decade after decade. It's just kind of the wrapping paper around it that's changed. And I think one of the most recent and biggest changes is the subscription model. And now we have subscription models in vitamins and wine clubs and everything's a subscription. I mean, at my dentist's office, I'm asked to join their club to get discounts on cleanings. And so anyway, I'm sorry, I'm going off into a long tangent, but I think currently, notwithstanding anything to do with COVID, this subscription model to me is what brings value to a business, because you have those people on recurring payments. And the more of those you have, just like the influencers, the more followers they have, the more valuable they are. So I don't know if that really answers the question, but that's kind of what I've seen over the decades and where we are now.
That's interesting, because how did people join before to a membership organization? They didn't pay, I assume, or what?
They would write a $30 check once a month and the treasurer would send it in via snail mail.
And was that membership organization local to a certain area, or how else would you do it?
Well, at least in our organization, we had chapters nationwide, and we didn't have any rules or regs about who could join which group. But what we did say was, you should join a Leads Club chapter in an area where you want to increase your business. So maybe you live in the suburbs, but your company's downtown. You might want to join a chapter downtown if yours is the type of business that people need to come to you or something like that.
Well, how did you grow all those chapters? I mean, did she start it out But you probably grew it exponentially after that. How'd you do that?
It was practicing what we were preaching, because Leads Club was a business referral organization or business networking, not to be confused with network marketing. That's something very different. These are groups of 30 people, all in non-competing businesses that met weekly for the sole purpose of giving each other business leads. So that was our business model in a nutshell. And so now what was your question? Sorry. Oh, how did we grow? Okay. So we grew by word of mouth, by networking, by, like one of the best groups ever was a woman named Denise, and I won't use her last name. And she was up in the East Bay, and she moved out to a very small town called Delta with 6,000 people. And Leads Club had been so good for her in the Bay Area that she opened a group out there, and just with her enthusiasm and experience, that group grew to 30. Well, 30 was our max, grew to 30 in 5 weeks. We broke all records with that one. But I think it's really, when you have happy customers, they're going to tell other people, and it's no different in a membership organization, I don't think. At least that's where I got my best and most long-term groups, were through personal referral.
Well, that's really interesting. What do you think are some of the primary challenges that you feel that businesses are facing over the next maybe 3 years?
I thought a lot about that when you put that question down, Nan. I think it's going to be a post-COVID transition. So, and if we look at how COVID was for many businesses, it was a constant struggle to open and close again, maybe open, close again, and never getting, I knew I'd get to say this somewhere in our interview. I'm a type A control freak. So COVID was really hard for me because there was no plan. There was no end game, so, and that's really hard for businesses to plan. So I think if we looked how challenging it was during COVID, even though some would say we're still in it, but I think the next 3 years in business, I think the biggest thing is going to be the post-COVID transition. There's other things, but I think that's going to be hard because companies are still in pain, if not financially, supply chain, not having enough employees. It's hard. It's really hard right now.
And then if you have employees, keeping employees, and then in those early days when we had to go through COVID, you had to do testing and you had all kinds of other requirements. So we really rewound, didn't we, in a lot of areas?
Yeah.
Let me ask you about coaching. What makes coaching so effective? I know you wrote a blog about this topic, but give us some highlights about that.
You know what? I went to my website to see if I had something concise to say. And so I'm going to read this to you and then I'm sure I'll elaborate. But as a coach, I partner in a confidential, collaborative, and non-judgmental way, using a process that's designed to meet the unique challenges and opportunities of my clients. So I think that really says a lot about what a coach does. And in real life, though not in that fancy sentence, I know when it was me, and especially when my mom was in the business with me, we were not allowed to talk about our business at family dinners. Can you believe that? Our family was, because we were so darn enthusiastic about our business and we had all these great stories we always were talking to each other about. And so my family made a rule that we couldn't talk about our business. So, I'm sure we're not the only ones. I hope not. I hope we're not the only weirdos. But, and also having someone, your coach, that will listen to you without judgment, without any personal gain if they hear you say this or that. So I know for many of your clients, Nan, they're at the top of the they're at the top of the ladder, you know, in the C-suite, or they're managers, or they're leaders in their businesses. And a lot of times you don't have anyone to talk to about problems. You can't talk to your employees. And sometimes you don't even want to talk to a partner or someone like that about it. So I don't know if you've had this experience recently, but I actually just was coached on a weekly basis for the last couple of months. And it was so powerful to make changes because I had an accountability partner. So, and I know maybe that doesn't sound very sexy, but an accountability partner can really be powerful when you're trying to make changes or improvements or launch something new, you know. And all those big successful people had coaches like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. They don't, you look at the success, and those successful people have coaches. Anyway, I get all excited.
I think coaches is, in a way, a very new concept. I know when I was running Nan McKay and Associates, where we had quite a few employees, I coined the phrase that I always felt, and it was, it's lonely at the top, because you really don't have people to talk to your real serious problems about. You certainly can't talk to employees about other employees. And you can get your employees to brainstorm ideas and things like that, but you're looking for something a little bit different, aren't you, when you're looking for someone to coach you?
And then a lot of what we talk about in the coaching training arena, because one of my friends actually runs a training for coaches, is the confusion that a coach is not a therapist. They're very, very different entities. And someone could go to one or the other or both at the same time. So a coach is really there in most cases to help you take your life to the next level, help you solve a problem in a non-judgmental and way. We're just there for you. And how often can you say that? God, I get to talk to someone for an hour that's only there for me, not trying to fix me. Yeah, so.
What really intrigues you about the coaching process?
Let's see. I thought I would answer that question by sharing my personal experience in the last 2 months, because as I said, I was doing some weekly coaching with a woman who had to get her hours, so I was helping her out. And what a wonderful thing, how to be able to help someone and get coached. I mean, it's totally a win-win. I think I got the better deal. But, you know, I actually started a meditation practice after 3 weeks with her. Her name happened to be Lisa too. And I have had meditate regularly on my to-do list for literally years. And her lovely, I really need someone who's warm and supportive. I don't react well to a more militant type of style. And I know some people do really well with that, but I need someone that's softer and kinder and gentler. And she was just a good match for me as a coach. And I am so darn proud that finally, after all this time, I was able to get meditation into my daily routine. And, you know, I think that's what excites me about coaching, is being coached. It reminds me how powerful the work we do is.
Well, I'm going to take you to the next step then, since you opened that door. You ask people, what would you do for the rest of your life if ... So I want you to do this. Finish that for us, and then tell us, what does it bring out in people?
It's fun. It's fun. So these are the 3 questions that also get me pretty excited about coaching. And they are, if success was imminent, if fear was not a consideration, and money was not a consideration either. If those 3 things were there, what would you do with your big, glorious life? And so I think those questions allow people to open up possibilities. I never was one of those people that had fear of success. So I mean, I think I'm probably more extreme the other way. I just go, oh, I can do that. Okay, boom. but that is very real. And especially for women, there's a lot of fear of success. So if you take that fear off the table, it allows your mind to open a little bit more. And the same goes for money. You know, a lot of people stay in horrible situations because they need either the health insurance or the money or some other something. And so if you take the money, if the money is guaranteed, you take that concern or fear off the table, then you can just fly. So I love that. I just love that so much. That's why I have those questions up there.
Well, I would think those questions would be helpful for someone, even if they weren't thinking about running a business or starting a business. I would think maybe, let's say you've got a woman who's 65, and that person's probably been in a career, or could very well have been, and now is kind of like, okay, now what's next on my plate? How do you think those questions would apply to that person?
Oh, I think they'd be the best. I think that would be perfect because it's just 3, they're simple questions. And rather than just saying allowing again, it just allows your brain to be open to possibilities. I don't know how to say that any differently. Because I think a lot of people worry a lot, especially right now. Oh my gosh, right now, oh my God, it's such a tough time for so many reasons. Yeah.
And I think we get stuck every once in a while. You know, we start thinking, okay, now I've shut that door. Where's my other doors to open? So if you don't do something like that, you know, to ask yourself those questions, it seems like it would be hard to take that next step because you kind of just flounder and you go through life day to day. But when you've been in a career and you've been in that accomplish mode, you know, I have to accomplish something, task-oriented part, does your career kind of become your part of your ego?
I would think so. You know, I actually am all those things you just said, you know, really goal oriented, and I love structure. And so when a woman would come out of that in, say, a corporate environment and then not have her next chapter already figured out, I believe that could be a little unsettling. For me, I sold my business and my house within 15 days of each other. The business 38 years, my house 30 years. And May 15th, I was homeless because my house sold and my new house wasn't ready yet. So I boarded my cat, I threw the dog in the back of the car, and I went on the road for 2 months. Thank God my godson let me live with him in Portland. So my entree into leaving, you know, a career was kind of weird, but I know I'm not the only one, because with the housing the way it is, a lot of people are doing that these days. But when I finally got to move in, I think I still was in that mode. I would still go sit at my desk and I would find amazing things to do. And I volunteer as a mentor with SCORE. So that takes time and it allows me to be in a business mindset. And so I think people just need to find their way, and a coach, it's a great time to have a coach, or, you know, Nan, to have the support of all of the tools in your toolkit.
You know, I am really high on SCORE, but tell people a little bit about that because they might not know what SCORE is.
Well, thank you. I started as a SCORE volunteer back in San Diego 18 years ago, and SCORE is a resource partner of the Small Business Administration. We have about 300 plus SCORE chapters nationwide, And the sole purpose of SCORE is to offer free mentoring and free or low cost workshops to anyone and everyone. And so, for example, the chapter I just transferred up to here, Portland, we have about 85 mentors. And post-COVID now, they're finally doing face-to-face mentoring, I think at the Beaverton Chamber or Library. But you can go to score.org, SCORE.org. And I just get so excited. I usually have about 6 to 10 clients, active clients at one time, and we offer mentoring as you want it. You know, if someone needs me once a week, I can do that. If I'm a once a month check-in, or if I'm just there when you have a crash or a success, you know. But SCORE mentors are amazing humans. They're normally very successful business people, many retired. And they want to give back. They want to stay active and vital. And it's a great organization, mostly for people starting a business or wanting to take it to the next level. I get a little excited about it.
That stands for Senior Corps of Retired Executives.
It did. And we recently rebranded that because that didn't quite fit our model anymore. So I think the latest rebranding is Counselors to America's Small Business, but that doesn't follow the acronym. But
And it's free. And that's the
free.
thing that is so important when you're starting a business, because you have no money coming in, you have money going out, and you need help.
You know, one statistic I like to share with my SCORE clients is that the importance of a business plan. And I know people roll their eyes and say, icky no, but your business is 300 or more % more likely to succeed if you have a business plan. So that's one of the hallmarks of what we do with our clients, and all the tools and things we have on our site is to help people get that plan in place so that you have a better chance of success. And, you know, I think for people coming out of corporate America, they may be very successful in their corner of, you know, the executive suites, but they may not have been there when the business started, and all the planning, all the underlying things that go on. Until you've run your own business, you don't know the importance of HR and insurance and all those really boring things, but they're super important.
Yeah, that's a good point. I used SCORE to help me with my business plan in 1980 when I started that business.
Cool.
And then I did it again in 1990 because I just felt I wanted to kind of renew what I had decided on back then and kind of say, gosh, am I going the right direction? And now in working with you, it's what, 2022, and I'm doing it
again. You're one of our best clients.
Yeah. So let's go back to those questions that we had. What would you give as your own answers to those questions?
Oh, right. Okay. So I guess, don't have the fear thing, so that's okay. And money is not a concern for me right now. I mean, if the stock market keeps going crazy, it might be, but anyway, so, and so those two, fortunately for me, I feel very lucky that I don't have to worry about those two. But what has been keeping me up at night was finding a place for me to put my experience and my energy and my passion. So I don't know if you, Nan, or anyone listening in, but I know when I was in business for those 38 years, I had some very strong political and value-based beliefs that I could not talk about, because I just believe you don't talk about those things in business, because otherwise you're going to alienate 50% of your potential clients. And I know that sounds pretty down and dirty, but so now that I don't own a business anymore, I am so excited that I can go front and center with my passions that I've had to keep under wrap. And when I moved in here in August of last year, and I gave myself to the end of the year where I told myself I didn't have to do or be anything. And that wasn't enough time. So then I decided to give myself the whole year of this year. But it didn't take that long. And another thing, because I am such a control freak, it's really hard for me to like just let things out in the universe. I feel like I'm very driven and I can make things happen that aren't meant to happen. The universe is saying stop, stop, but I'm so assertive that as I've gotten older, I'm trying to just put things out into the universe and let them happen. And I did that in this case. And I'm very proud that I was invited to be on the state board for Oregon of the League of Women Voters. And I have now just immersed myself in that. They put me in charge of membership in DEI. And I'm just like a kid in a playground, you know, I'm having so much fun learning more about the league and, you know, making sure we have free and fair elections for every American. And I'm pretty passionate about that.
And DEI is diversity, equity, inclusion, right?
Right. Yeah. And that's an important part of membership, you know, and I was at our annual retreat for the first time about a month ago. And there were 7 or 8 of us for the state league board, 7 or 8 of us, all exactly in my demographic, Nan, mature white women with means. And, you know, I'm not saying I'm wealthy, but I don't, knock on wood, have to worry about that right now. And even though we're volunteering our time and we're passionate about helping everyone, we need diversity on our board, and it's hard. It's hard to get it. We need diversity everywhere on all levels. But so actually it's a good learning curve for me, because while I believe in the concept, you know, it's a very big issue, and I'm enjoying having the learning curve on that.
Good point. You know, I think that COVID really seems to have changed people's outlook on life and motivations. What are you seeing as some of the differences?
You know, I think we hear a lot in the news about all the bad stuff that's happened for people during COVID, which I think is very real and probably more serious and long lasting than any of us even know now. But that being said, I think there was so much good that came out of it. And if you don't mind me being a ridiculous Pollyanna, you know, people changed, made big changes in their lives, where they lived, their work. I mean, people had the courage to say, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I can live in Tahiti and work remotely and give my family a life where they can explore. And also I think some of the things around employees that are now getting paid a living wage because of the shortness of, I'm not saying this very well, but you know, if you can't make a living wage, but you have to work, it's such a catch-22. And I think even though it's hard on the companies that are now having to pay more, I don't know, I think there's good stuff. I think there's good stuff that's going to come, as well as the deep, difficult challenges.
Well, I haven't to this point thought about Tahiti, but I guess I could. So let me ask you a question. How do you think that women, say 50 to 65, changed in their life desires?
I made some notes on that. I think it depends on if they're still in the workforce. It would be very difficult for me to talk about that age group without speaking of if you're still working or not. So I know for me, when I turned 65, it made sense for me to go ahead and retire and sell my business. And I just changed my whole life. And I think a lot of women in that age group do when they get to the point where they have the resources. And that's like what we were talking about before. Once we get to that point, after the 3 questions are all taken care of, then it's very, very exciting because we have a lot to give and a lot of experience and a lot of passion and knowledge that we can use to make the world a better place. So I think what's different for women in that age group is they now are free to be themselves and do what really drives their spirit and meets their values. And so I think that's been the most exciting thing for me.
Yeah, I do certainly hear women that I've interviewed say that they're just kind of tired of the rat race. They're tired of fighting constantly for position, fighting for status within the company, and saying to themselves, wow, wait a minute, how many more years do I have left? And how do I make a difference in those years? Which maybe is the same thing in a way, even though they may not be working at 65, but on the other hand, some people are. Look at me.
Yes.
But I wonder about then people 65 and over, or even 70. What do you think is different for them? I think maybe moving next to family has been important, because that group found that, gosh, I could be in the hospital all by myself, nobody able to come visit me, maybe somebody to talk to me on the phone. But no, if I'm not close, even now, what happens when I have to go to, let's say, assisted living or senior living of some kind, and nobody comes to visit me because nobody's close. I mean, there's those kinds of things that I think maybe women 65 and over are going through. Have you heard that or anything else from that group?
In my friends in that age group, I think the biggest challenges come when the reality sets in that we're in the final third or final chapter of our lives. And all those things you mentioned, those logistics of setting things up, are definitely a big deal, because a lot of people, like me, I lived in my house for 30 years and moved to another state. It's a big deal, just that little moving component, because you have to find all new support people, meet new friends, figure out the grocery store. I mean, all those things. I had a list in my Christmas letter of everything I did in 2021. I got new technology before I sold my business. So I had to learn all this new technology, and so there continues to be this huge learning curve that gets to slow down if you've left the workplace or are not working in as high stress of a position. So I think it's more challenging in some ways for those reasons you mentioned, but also there's, here I go again, being so silly and optimistic. You don't have to worry about, like you said, making the next step up the ladder, or, for me in my position, there's issues with employees, and it's constantly a struggle to keep the marketing on task, because I was, I ran the business myself with employees and contractors, but you're always on, your brain never sleeps. I guess that's the biggest part. I read my notes, but I don't like what I said. I think the biggest part for me was letting my brain rest, because I was always had to be on, always.
Yeah, I think that's really true. Well, what do you think your next chapter is going to look like?
Well, I'm pretty excited about my work with the league.
Yeah.
And even though I told myself I had the rest of the year all the stars aligned, and that seemed to be a good place for me to put my energy. So I'm very excited about that. And in working with my coach, I'm working on my health. So that's exciting too. So I'm just going to try and be the best Lisa I can be and help as many people as I can.
And what more would you want than that? That is fantastic.
And I find you very inspiring, Nan. I'm really impressed with your level of detail and learning all these amazing things that you offer for your clients. And, you know, anybody who knows you just should feel fortunate for your great depth of knowledge and business experience, especially working with women. So it's good to know you.
Yeah, you know, you just keep ticking along because, you know, you just can't give up. I mean, there's so much more to life. And I think, okay, even if I only have a year, 2, 5, whatever it is, 10, I don't know what it is going to be. I just want to make the best I can make out of those years.
I think you are.
So what would you say are 3 tips that you have for women over, let's say, in their 60s or 70s?
Boy, number one is really the hardest thing for me, and that is to really give yourself the gift of quiet time. Whether that means you go to a lake cabin or a spa, or you just carve out time every day to walk somewhere that's beautiful. Really gift yourself the time of quiet and introspection. And I believe if we can do that, then the answers will come for whatever is out there. And I know that's not 3 things, but so I think being able to have some quiet time, which many of us didn't have before, or at least have enough of it consistently to be able, and that's my meditation thing coming out, as you can tell. But yeah, I think that's really important for us, is to keep in touch with ourselves so that this final chapter in our lives can be on target with our values and our dreams. Because some women haven't been able to live their dream jobs, so now they can, and that's pretty exciting. And then, you know what, I think it would go back to my questions. I'd say, give yourself that quiet introspective time, believe in yourself that success is imminent, and don't let fear. I saw a thing come through my social feed. It said, when fear walks by, tip your hat and walk on. And I thought that was so cool. I love that.
I love that.
Okay, there your fear. See you later.
Well, it's been so much fun talking with you. I get the privilege of ongoing communication after this with you, and I appreciate that so much. But is there anything else you'd like to add?
I guess, you know, because I've been so Pollyanna this whole time, I just really want to put it out there that I know times are tough right now, and there's a lot of unknowns, and just take advantage of people in your lives. I think if I didn't have friends and neighbors, my life would be not nearly as happy. I think at least most of us need people. And so surround yourself with people of like mind and like values, and that's been missing a lot during COVID. And I had a friend come visit last weekend over the 4th, and he got home and he had COVID. So I had to go to all my friends that I had seen over the 4th and test every day. And, you know, so we're still in that, but there's still ways we can have community. So I guess the short answer, sorry for a long-winded answer, is, you know, avail yourself of community.
I think that's a great suggestion, because the bottom line is we shall survive and thrive, right? And thrive.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Nan.